If I were to leave GitHub, and yes, I am a software engineer currently working at GitHub, here are the 10 things I would be looking for in the new company that I might be joining. And no, I'm not leaving GitHub. I'm not submitting my resignation anytime soon. This is just a hypothetical question to show you the things that I consider substantial quality of work-life improvements that I find very, very difficult to let go of. So obviously, this is going to make some assumptions. One of them being that the company that I might be joining is also a SaaS company offering software as a service, and it is of the same level of maturity approximately. Because if I'm joining a startup, for example, some of these things don't make sense at that scale. Number one, what's the level of maturity of the integration and deployment pipelines? You don't deploy multiple times a day? This is a big red flag for me. If you are a SaaS company and you are staggering releases in the sense that you deploy only once every week, or you create a big bang release every month or something like that, this is a proxy indicator for the level of maturity of your operations. At GitHub, we deploy multiple times a day. In this simple question, I will be able to assess the maturity of your DevOps practices across the entire organization. This is going to tell me plenty about the maturity of your unit tests, your infrastructure teams, and it's going to tell me a lot about how you manage operations. And most likely, these are not going to be great answers. Number two, how many levels are between the individual contributors, like myself as software engineers, and the C-suite level? All the C executives, CEO, CMO, CFO, CTO, whatever. If the number of hops is higher than 3, this is a big indicator that this is a company that relies heavily on middle management, and that is never a good indicator. You would want the number between yourself and the C-level executives to be as little as possible. This will tell you that the middle management is efficient and that you are at close proximity from the decisions made by the leadership team. This should allow you also to accelerate your impact and career growth as a software engineer. There's going to be way less bureaucracy and way less process. Number 3, I would be asking, how do you manage work at scale? If I hear any variation of safe or scaled agile framework, I would run away immediately. There's absolutely no need for any of that scaled agile whatever. All I'm going to say is that this methodology is completely unnecessary. Any top-down management model is going to allow your organization to crawl to a halt, and that is not necessarily a good indicator for me. Number 4, remote work policy. If your policy is having zero tolerance for remote work, or you are forcing employees to spend more than a few days at the office, then that is also a not so good indicator for me. Number 5, how do you go to market? What is your go-to-market strategy? Is it mature? Do you have efficient pipelines for whenever you're introducing new features? How do you raise awareness across all of your teams before you ship that feature and before you make it available? How do you brief your support team? How do you train them? How do you help your services team, if you have any? How do you onboard them to the new technical challenges that they will be dealing with? This is extremely important because not having an enabled support team increases the load of support on the engineering team and will prevent them from actually building the features that they are supposed to be building. How do you understand and implement DevOps in your company? If the answer is very shallow and a regurgitation basically of the DevOps definitions, and it's a very fluffy answer, this is a bad indicator, and this means that these folks don't necessarily understand what DevOps is all about, and they don't understand how to implement it internally within their company. I would ask how many people report to engineering managers. And if that number is higher than 7, this is a major, major red flag, because that means that engineering manager does not have time to work with the people, to grow them, to help them with their career planning. The engineering manager can barely deal with the load of work that's going to come in their direction. And most likely they are relying on some of the senior engineers in the team to take on a lot of the responsibilities of the engineering manager, and they are not rewarding that engineer with the appropriate recognition. I have never seen an engineering manager able to deal effectively with more than 7 people. There is always something lacking beyond that point. I would ask, how do you manage product support? If there is no support team at this company, if this support team is not mature enough, if the number of support engineers does not balance the number of software engineers in some way or form, the ratio is not healthy. This is also a bad indicator, and that means that the engineering team is dealing with a lot of support back pressure, and that would play very negatively when it comes to the quality of work life. The last question I will ask is, how do you manage incidents? And if I sniff out any form of retaliatory reactions when incidents happen or major accountability, then I will be very, very turned off by this, because Incidents will happen no matter what, no matter how capable the engineers are, no matter what practices you have. You can obviously reduce the impact, you can reduce the blast radius, and that is what I want to hear. I don't want to hear that people will be held accountable and we're going to do this, and that for people who, deal with incidents. I want to hear concrete answers for how you do incident management, and I want to understand very clearly how you mitigate and how fast your response to incidents is. There's so much more to ask, and that is why, in my opinion, interviews should be a two-way street. And I will try to negotiate an interview where I interview the hiring manager about all of these things, and I would love to hear their answers on the job before I accept a job offer. I understand, obviously, this is coming from a position of privilege, but if the company assessing me does not understand where I am coming from and does not understand the importance of asking these questions and does not understand the value that I will be bringing to their team, then maybe we're not a great match. Use this information wisely. Good luck.